You will stop that ambulance from coming to this neighborhood, or I'll have your medical license revoked. I never thought I'd be screamed at in my own driveway at 2:47 a.m. on a freezing January morning, still wearing trauma surgeon scrubs covered in someone else's blood, staring at a woman blocking my garage like she had the authority to dictate life and death. But there she was, Catherine Thornhill, president of Greenbrier Estates HOA for exactly 8 weeks, standing between me and my house after a 14-hour shift where I'd just saved 3 lives in the ER. I'm Dr. Ethan Crawford, board-certified trauma surgeon at Denver Memorial Hospital. And this is the story of how one power-drunk HOA president decided that emergency medical calls to my home violated her peaceful community standards. Catherine had moved into Greenbrier 3 months ago and apparently believed that my occasionally bringing work home mentoring young residents, providing telephone consultations, having an ambulance drop me off when my car was in the shop was a commercial medical operation destroying her property values. She had no idea what she'd just started. She had no idea that attacking a doctor who documented everything for malpractice protection meant attacking someone with recording devices running 24/7, and she definitely had no idea that her precious HOA had been violating Colorado medical facility protection laws since the day it was incorporated. But standing there in my driveway at 3 a.m., blocking me from entering my own home after the longest shift of my life, Catherine Thornhill believed she was untouchable. She was about to learn otherwise. Being a trauma surgeon isn't just a job, it's a calling that doesn't respect office hours, personal boundaries, or the idea that work stays at the office. I'd bought the house in Greenbrier Estates 5 years ago, specifically because it was 15 minutes from Denver Memorial. Quiet enough for the sleep I desperately needed between shifts, and had enough space for the home office where I reviewed cases, mentored residents via video calls, and provided consultation services that saved lives across 3 states. The house itself was a modest 4-bedroom ranch on a corner lot in what used to be a genuinely peaceful neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just a comfortable place with good internet, soundproofing in my office, and a garage big enough for my car and my mountain bike. When the Greenbrier development expanded in 2021, adding 60 new homes and creating an HOA to maintain community standards, I'd barely paid attention. New neighbors meant new families who might appreciate having a trauma surgeon living nearby in case of emergencies. For 3 years, we coexisted perfectly. My medical practice was entirely hospital-based. No patients ever visited my home. No procedures were performed in my living room. Nothing that remotely resembled running a clinic. The only medical activity at my house was me reviewing x-rays on my laptop, having video consultations with hospitals in other cities, and occasionally hosting residents who stopped by to discuss complex cases over coffee and pizza. My neighbors knew what I did. Several of them had ended up in my ER. Over the years, Tom Chen after a bike accident, the Morrison family's daughter after a skateboarding injury, elderly Mrs. Patterson when she had a heart attack, and I performed CPR in her driveway until the ambulance arrived. Being the neighborhood doctor wasn't something I advertised, but it was something people appreciated when they needed it. Then Catherine Thornhill bought the mini mansion directly across from mine, and my peaceful existence shattered like glass. My first real encounter with Catherine should have been a massive red warning flag. It was mid-November, around 11 p.m., and I was in my home office on a video call with a surgical resident at Seattle Grace Hospital discussing a complicated abdominal trauma case. The patient, a 28-year-old woman who'd been in a car accident, was crashing fast. And my expertise was literally the difference between life and death for someone I'd never meet. The case was complex. Ruptured spleen, possible liver laceration, internal bleeding that the resident couldn't locate. I was walking her through the diagnostic process, explaining what to look for on the ultrasound, when I saw movement through my window. Catherine Thornhill was marching across the street in designer pajamas and a cashmere robe that probably cost more than my monthly student loan payment. She was carrying her phone like a weapon. Screen glowing. Already recording before she reached my property. The doorbell rang. Not once. 7 times in rapid succession, the kind of aggressive ringing that screams emergency when you're a doctor trained to respond to crisis situations. I muted my call, told the resident to hold on, and opened the door expecting to find a neighbor having a medical emergency. Instead, I found Catherine Thornhill. "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping my voice professional despite the irritation rising in my chest. She didn't introduce herself. Didn't ask my name. Didn't apologize for the late hour. Just launched straight into her complaint, like she was reading from a prepared script. "Do you have any idea what time it is? Your lights are blazing like a stadium." I can hear talking. And this is a residential neighborhood, not a medical facility. Whatever you're doing needs to stop. Now, I took a breath, reminding myself that some people simply don't understand how medicine works. "I'm Dr. Ethan Crawford. I'm on a consultation call with a hospital in Seattle. There's a patient whose life is at stake." And she cut me off with a wave of her manicured hand. "I don't care if you're the Surgeon General of the United States. This is a residents-only zone. Commercial medical activity violates Section 8. 4 of the Greenbrier HOA covenants. I've read them thoroughly. I'm not seeing patients here. I'm consulting from home via video, which is completely legal under Colorado law, federal HIPAA regulations, and medical practice standards." Her jaw tightened, and I saw something flash in her eyes. Not concern, not confusion, but anger at being contradicted. "We'll see about that. I'm calling an emergency board meeting to address this violation. You'll be hearing from the HOA attorney." She turned and walked away, heels clicking on my driveway in her bedroom slippers, already typing furiously on her phone. I stood there for 5 seconds, processing what had just happened, then went back to my call. The Seattle resident had found the bleeding, torn mesenteric artery, and with my guidance, she saved the patient's life. But in the back of my mind, I knew that Catherine Thornhill had just declared war. That was 6 weeks ago. And what followed was a systematic campaign of harassment that would have broken most people. First came the noise complaints. Not 1 or 2 12 complaints filed with the Denver Noise Control Office in 3 weeks, all claiming my home office created excessive noise and disruption at unreasonable hours. According to Catherine's detailed reports, my video consultations at 10 p.m. were disturbing the peace. My lights were creating light pollution. And the sound of me talking on the phone was violating residential quiet hours. The city inspector who came out to investigate was Tom Rodriguez, a patient guy in his 40s who I'd actually treated in the ER 2 years earlier when he broke his arm falling off a ladder. He recognized me immediately. "Dr. Crawford," he said, looking genuinely embarrassed as he unpacked his decibel meter. "I have to follow up on every complaint we receive, even when they're obviously ridiculous. I'm sorry about this. No apology needed." Tom Do what you need to do. He set up his equipment during one of my evening consultations, this time with a hospital in Portland about a pediatric trauma case. I was on a video call, speaking in my normal voice. Medical journals open on my desk. Completely professional setup. The meter read 47 decibels at my property line. Tom shook his head and showed me the reading. Legal limit for residential areas during nighttime hours is 55 decibels. You're quieter than a dishwasher running. Hell. You're quieter than the traffic on the highway 3 blocks away. These complaints are complete garbage. Can you note that in your official report? Already am? He glanced toward Catherine's house, where I could see her watching from an upstairs window. Look, Dr. Crawford, between you and me, we've had issues with this woman before. She filed 14 noise complaints against a home-based accountant 3 blocks over until the poor guy gave up and moved to Aurora. She's got a pattern. What kind of pattern? Targeting people who work from home, claims they're running businesses, violating zoning laws, destroying property values. We've dismissed every complaint she's filed because they're all baseless. But she keeps filing them anyway. Why hasn't anyone stopped her? Tom packed up his equipment with a shrug that said he'd seen this movie before. HOA president. People are afraid to challenge her because she controls the board. My advice: document everything. Save every email, every letter, every interaction. Because this woman doesn't stop until she gets what she wants or someone forces her to stop. But Catherine didn't just file noise complaints. She escalated to attacks on my medical license. Within a week, I received notification from the Colorado Medical Board that a formal complaint had been filed against me. The accusations were shocking: operating an unlicensed medical clinic, seeing patients without proper facility permits, performing medical procedures in a residential zone without safety protocols, disposing of medical waste improperly. Every single accusation was a complete fabrication. I don't see patients at my home. Never have. My practice is entirely hospital-based. The only medical activity that occurs in my house is me sitting at a computer talking to other doctors about how to save lives. The medical board investigator who came to my house was Dr. Patricia Mills, a stern woman in her 60s who'd been investigating medical practice violations for 20 years. She arrived expecting to find an illegal clinic operation. Instead, she found my home office, a desk, a computer with dual monitors, medical textbooks lining the shelves, a coffee maker, and absolutely zero patient care equipment. Dr. Crawford, she said, after inspecting every room in my house, there's nothing here that remotely violates any medical practice regulations. You're not seeing patients. You're not performing procedures. You're not storing controlled substances. You're not doing anything that requires additional licensing beyond your existing credentials. The person who filed the complaint either doesn't understand how modern medical practice works, or is deliberately trying to damage your reputation. Dr. Mills closed her inspection notebook with a snap that sounded final. I'm documenting this as an unfounded complaint with clear evidence of possible harassment. The board takes false complaints very seriously, especially when they're filed against physicians in good standing. If this person files again, we'll investigate them for abuse of the reporting system. The complainant is my HOA president, Catherine Thornhill. Dr. Mills wrote the name down carefully. Does she have a personal issue with you? Apparently, she has an issue with me being a doctor who occasionally works from home. Then, she's about to learn that harassing licensed physicians is a serious mistake. But Catherine's campaign didn't slow down. It accelerated. The parking complaints came next. Every time a colleague stopped by to discuss a case, Catherine filed a violation notice claiming their vehicle created dangerous traffic congestion and violated HOA parking regulations. It didn't matter that visitors parked in my driveway on my property, not blocking anyone. It didn't matter that the visits lasted 30 minutes at most. Catherine documented every car, every license plate, every arrival and departure time, like she was running surveillance on a criminal operation. My neighbor, Sarah Morrison, pulled me aside one afternoon while I was checking my mail. "Ethan, I don't know what you did to piss off Catherine, but she's telling everyone you're running some kind of illegal medical operation. She's got half the neighborhood convinced you're performing surgery in your garage. That's insane. I know it is. Tom and I have been defending you, but Catherine's very convincing when she wants to be. She's showing people photos of medical transport vehicles in your driveway. Hospital transportation took me home twice when my car was in the shop. That's not an ambulance service. It's just a ride from work. Sarah C. Hill." You and I know that. But Catherine's spinning it like you're running an emergency room out of your house. She's calling it a public safety threat and a commercial medical facility that's going to tank everyone's property values. The systematic assault on my reputation continued daily. Catherine filed complaints with the fire department about alleged hazardous materials storage. She reported me to the health department for supposed bio-waste violations. She contacted the state pharmacy board claiming I was illegally dispensing medications. Every agency investigated. Every agency found nothing. But each investigation cost me time I should have been spending saving lives. It created stress that affected my focus at the hospital and chipped away at my standing in a community where I'd lived peacefully for 5 years. The emotional toll was heavier than I wanted to admit. I'd chosen trauma surgery because I wanted to save lives, not spend my off hours defending myself against baseless accusations. I started dreading coming home, wondering what new complaint would be waiting in my mailbox. My sleep suffered. My concentration at work wavered. During one particularly complex surgery, I caught myself thinking about Catherine's harassment instead of focusing entirely on my patient. That's when I knew this had to end. When your personal problems start affecting your ability to save lives, you can't ignore them anymore. But I still believed the system would work, that official channels would recognize the harassment for what it was and intervene. I was wrong. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning at 2:47 a.m. I just finished the shift from hell, 14 hours straight in the trauma unit, 3 gunshot victims from a gang shooting, 2 critical car accident cases, and 1 construction worker who'd fallen 4 stories and somehow survived with injuries that required every bit of my surgical skill to repair. I was exhausted, covered in blood not mine. Thankfully, operating on pure adrenaline and muscle memory, my car was still in the shop getting transmission work, so I'd arranged for a hospital transportation to drop me off. The medical transport van pulled into my driveway at 2:47 a.m. I grabbed my bag, thanked the driver, and was halfway to my front door when Catherine appeared. She was standing in my driveway, blocking the path to my house, wearing designer workout clothes and full makeup at 3 inches the morning, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Her phone was up. Camera recording. That familiar look of righteous anger on her face. "This ends now," she screamed, loud enough to wake every house within 2 blocks. You are running an illegal ambulance service from a residential property, and I'm calling the state health department, the medical board, and the police. I stopped walking. Too tired for this confrontation. Too drained to summon the patience I usually maintained with difficult people. Catherine. That was hospital transportation taking me home from work. It's not an ambulance. It's not patient transport. It's literally just a ride because my personal vehicle is being repaired. I don't care what you call it. She hissed, stepping closer, invading my space in a way that made my trauma surgeon instincts kick in, assessing threats, calculating responses. Medical vehicles coming to this address at all hours violate community standards, endanger our children, and destroy property values. This is the final straw. She planted herself directly in my walkway, arms crossed. Phone still recording? Move. I said quietly, "Not until you agree to stop these illegal medical activities immediately. Sign a statement right now promising no more medical consultations, no more medical vehicles, no more disruption to this peaceful community." Something in me snapped, not into anger. I'd learned in trauma surgery that anger clouds judgment, but into absolute clarity about what I needed to do. I pulled out my phone and dialed the non-emergency police line, Denver Police. "How can I help you?" "I need an officer at 4521 Pinewood Drive in Greenbrier Estates. A neighbor is blocking me from entering my own home and refusing to move." Catherine's eyes went wide. She hadn't expected me to actually call the police on her. "Sir, is there any physical threat?" "No threat. Just someone trespassing on my property and blocking access to my residence. We'll send a unit. Should be there in about 15 minutes. I hung up and looked at Catherine. "You have 15 minutes to leave my property before the police arrive and arrest you for trespassing." For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine uncertainty in her eyes. She wasn't used to people who fought back. She held her ground for another 30 seconds, then slowly backed away. Still recording. Still muttering about illegal medical operations and community standards. The police arrived 14 minutes later. By then, Catherine had retreated to her house, but I gave the officers a full statement anyway. Documented the incident. Added it to the growing file of harassment evidence I'd been building. When I finally got inside my house at 3:30 a.m., I was too angry to sleep, too exhausted to think clearly, and for the first time since this began, genuinely afraid that Catherine's campaign might actually succeed in destroying the career I'd spent 12 years of brutal training to build. That fear kept me awake until sunrise. The next morning, after 3 hours of fitful sleep, I found the certified letter that changed everything. It was waiting in my mailbox, thick and official looking, with the Greenbrier HOA seal embossed on the envelope in gold lettering that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. My hands were shaking from exhaustion, from stress, from 6 weeks of relentless harassment as I opened it. Notice of covenant violation. -156 Dr. Ethan Crawford, 4521 Pinewood Drive. You are hereby notified of multiple severe violations of Greenbrier Estates HOA covenants. Section 8. 4 commercial medical operations in residential zone. Section 3. 2. Excessive noise and disturbance, creating public nuisance. Section 7. 1. Unauthorized medical vehicle traffic and emergency service, disruption operating unlicensed medical facility, Catherine Thornhill, President. Greenbrier Estates HOA, $50,000. For being a doctor who saved lives from a home office, I read the letter 3 times. Each reading making my blood pressure spike higher. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was an existential threat to my home, my career, my entire life. I photographed every page with my phone, hands still shaking. Then immediately called Marcus Webb, an attorney I'd met through the hospital who specialized in professional licensing and medical practice law. Marcus, it's Ethan Crawford. I need help. Now, what happened? I summarized the 6 weeks of harassment, culminating in the $50,000 fine I'd just received. Together, we will resolve this crisis. Catherine Thornhill, President. Greenbrier Estates, HOA President at Greenbrier-HOA.org. I read it 3 times. Hands shaking with rage. I'd been suppressing for weeks. She'd just publicly accused me of running an unlicensed medical facility, told 150 families to avoid my home, encouraged neighbors to spy on me and report my activities, implied I was a danger to children. This wasn't harassment anymore. This was defamation. This was a coordinated attempt to destroy my reputation and my career. And worse, it was working. Within 2 hours, I received 3 emails from neighbors I'd considered friends, people whose kids I'd treated for free in my ER, people I'd invited to barbecues. Dr. Crawford, given the concerns Catherine raised about licensing, could you provide documentation that your home consultations are properly permitted? We're worried about our children's safety. Ethan, I don't know what's going on with the HOA situation, but several of us are concerned about the medical vehicles coming and going at odd hours. Can you clarify what kind of medical activities you're conducting, Doctor? Crawford, until the licensing issues are resolved, we'd prefer you not speak to our children. We need to prioritize our family's safety. That last email came from Sarah Morrison, whose daughter I'd literally saved 2 years ago when she'd fallen off her skateboard and punctured her lung. I'd performed emergency intervention in their driveway until the ambulance arrived. I sat at my kitchen table reading these emails, feeling 6 weeks of harassment, stress, and exhaustion crystallize into cold, absolute fury. Catherine Thornhill had crossed a line she didn't even know existed. I forwarded all the emails to Marcus with a simple message: I want to destroy her. Completely. Whatever it takes. Marcus's response came immediately. Good. Because I just found something that's going to end her. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. My office. Bring everything, every letter, every recording, every piece of evidence. We're going to war. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from stress this time, but from anticipation. For 6 weeks, I'd been playing defense, responding to complaints, proving my innocence, trying to reason with unreasonable people. Tomorrow, I was going on offense. And Catherine Thornhill was about to learn that attacking a trauma surgeon, someone trained to stay calm under pressure, to document everything, to make life or death decisions in seconds, was the biggest mistake of her life. The next morning, I walked into Marcus Webb's law office carrying a banker's box filled with 6 weeks of documentation, every violation notice, every complaint, every email, every recording, My entire case against Catherine Thornhill, organized chronologically, cross-referenced, indexed like a medical chart. Marcus took one look at the box and smiled. You document like a surgeon. This is perfect. Malpractice training. Document everything or get sued. That training is about to save your career and end hers. He pulled out the first folder. Let me show you what I found. Over the next 2 hours, Marcus laid out the case that would destroy Catherine's world. First, the legal violations. Colorado Revised Statute 1236117 protected my right to provide professional medical consultations from home. Every fine Catherine had issued violated state law. Every threat she'd made was legally void. Her entire campaign was built on authority she didn't legally possess. Second, the HOA's lack of legal status. Greenbrier's nonprofit incorporation had lapsed in 2022. They weren't a legitimate HOA anymore, just a group of neighbors collecting dues and pretending to have legal authority. Every fine they'd issued in the past 2 years was fraudulent. Third, the embezzlement. Marcus had traced $47, 0 inches, legal consultation fees paid to a firm owned by Catherine's husband's business partner. Money that should have gone to community maintenance had been funneled into her personal vendetta against me. Fourth, the defamation. Catherine's mass email contained multiple false statements that damaged my professional reputation. Claims I was operating without licenses. Endangering children. Violating health regulations, all provably false, and distributed to 150 families. Ethan, Marcus said, spreading documents across his conference table. This isn't just an HOA dispute. This is criminal fraud, embezzlement, defamation, and harassment of a licensed professional. Catherine has violated at least 6 different state statutes. What's our move? We file everything simultaneously. Hit her from every direction at once so she can't mount a coordinated defense. He outlined the strategy: Monday, file complaint with Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies for violations of medical professional protection laws. Tuesday, file criminal complaint with the Attorney General's office for fraud and embezzlement. Wednesday, file civil defamation lawsuit seeking damages. Thursday, file harassment complaint with Denver police. Friday, send cease and desist letter to the entire HOA board exposing their lack of legal status. We're going to dismantle her piece by piece. Marcus said, and she won't see it coming until it's too late. When do we start today? Right now. I need you to write a detailed timeline of every interaction with Catherine, dates, times, what was said, who witnessed it. Your medical documentation skills are about to become legal weapons. I spent the rest of that day writing out everything. 6 weeks of harassment, compressed into a chronological narrative with supporting evidence. By the time I finished, it was 147 pages long. Marcus read it that evening and called me at 11 p.m. Ethan, this is the most comprehensive harassment documentation I've ever seen. Combined with the financial evidence and the legal violations, Catherine is finished. I'm filing first thing Monday morning. But Catherine wasn't waiting until Monday to make her next move. Sunday afternoon, while I was at the hospital performing emergency surgery on a teenager who'd been in a car accident, Catherine's final act of desperation played out. The Colorado Department of Public Health arrived at my house to investigate her complaint. But this time, they didn't just send an inspector. They sent Dr. Sarah Martinez, the deputy director of the Medical Facilities Division, along with 2 investigators and a legal compliance officer. My neighbor Tom Chen, who had a key to my house for emergencies, let them in and called me immediately. Ethan, there are state health officials crawling all over your house. They've got cameras, measuring equipment, the whole 9 yards. Catherine must have filed some serious complaint. I excused myself from the OR another surgeon could close and drove home at speeds that probably should have gotten me pulled over. When I arrived, Dr. Martinez was standing in my driveway with a tablet computer and an expression that suggested she'd just wasted 4 hours of her life. Dr. Crawford, that's me. What's going on? We received an emergency complaint alleging you were operating an unlicensed medical facility with patient care activities, surgical procedures, and improper medical waste disposal. The complaint included photographs and detailed documentation. That's completely false. I've never seen patients at this address. I know. We've spent the last 3 hours inspecting every room in your house. Dr. Crawford. There's nothing here except a home office with a computer and medical textbooks. No patient care equipment. No surgical supplies. No medical waste. Nothing that remotely suggests medical facility operations. Relief flooded through me. So, the complaint is not just unfounded, it's deliberately fraudulent. Dr. Martinez's expression hardened. This is the third false complaint filed against you by the same individual, Catherine Thornhill. The first 2 were dismissed after investigation, but this one crossed a line. She submitted falsified photographs that she claimed showed medical waste and patient care equipment in your garage. Falsified how? She took photos of medical supply catalogs on her computer screen and claimed they were pictures of equipment in your home. She staged a photo of a first aid kit and labeled it unauthorized medical supplies. She even created fake documentation claiming to be from concerned neighbors reporting patient visits that never occurred. My stomach dropped. She fabricated evidence extensively, which is why I'm here personally, instead of sending a junior inspector, Dr. Crawford. Filing false reports with a state health agency is a criminal offense. Creating fraudulent evidence to support those reports is a felony. I'm referring this entire matter to the Attorney General's office for prosecution. What happens now, Doctor? Martinez handed me a formal letter on state letterhead. This is official documentation that all complaints against you have been investigated and found to be completely without merit. You're a licensed physician in good standing, providing legitimate professional consultations from your home office, which is fully protected under Colorado law. I'm also filing a formal complaint with the medical board about Ms. Thornhill's abuse of the reporting system. She paused, then added quietly, "Off the record, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've never seen someone go to such lengths to harass a medical professional. Whatever Catherine Thornhill's problem is with you, it's personal. It's obsessive. And it's about to become very expensive for her." After Dr. docked, Martinez left. I sat in my driveway and called Marcus. She fabricated evidence, created fake photographs, filed false reports with a state agency. That's a felony. Marcus said immediately, "Forward me everything the state gave you." This just became a criminal case. That evening, Catherine made one final, desperate move. She sent another mass email to the neighborhood. But this one was different. Panicked. Defensive. The mask was slipping. Urgent update. Please read, dear neighbors. There has been a misunderstanding with the state health inspection of the medical facility at 4521 Pinewood Drive. Dr. Crawford has convinced state officials that his medical operations are legitimate through his connections and influence as a surgeon. This is exactly the kind of corruption we must fight against. I am calling an emergency HOA meeting for tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. to discuss next steps. We cannot allow a medical facility to operate in our residential neighborhood regardless of what bought-off state officials claim. Our property values and our children's safety depend on us standing together against this threat. I urge everyone to attend this meeting. We must present a united front. Catherine Thornhill, President. Greenbrier Estates, HOA. I forwarded it to Marcus. His response? She's imploding. This email accuses state officials of corruption, which is defamation against government employees. She's also admitting she plans to continue her illegal campaign despite being warned by multiple agencies. Let her dig deeper. We'll file everything tomorrow morning and then watch her world burn. The emergency HOA meeting Catherine called for Monday evening became the final battlefield. I wasn't planning to attend. Marcus advised against it, but Tom Chen called me that afternoon. Ethan, you need to be there. Catherine's telling everyone you're some kind of criminal doctor running an illegal clinic. Half the neighborhood believes her. If you don't defend yourself, she wins by default. The legal system will handle this. The legal system takes months. Your reputation is being destroyed right now. Today. By a woman who's convinced 50 families you're a threat to their children. Show up. Bring your evidence. Let people see who's really telling the truth. He was right. I could win every legal battle and still lose my standing in the community I'd called home for 5 years. I called Marcus. I'm going to the meeting. Bad idea. Anything you say can be used against you in I'm going. But I'm bringing you with me. The Greenbrier Community Center was packed when we arrived at 6:55 p.m. Over 100 people filled the room, more than I'd ever seen at an HOA meeting. Catherine had done her job well. Convincing the neighborhood this was a crisis that required community action, Catherine stood at the front of the room. And for the first time, I got a clear look at her without the filter of doorstep confrontations and email rants. She was maybe 45. Perfectly put together in business attire that screamed expensive. With that particular brand of confidence that comes from never having faced real consequences. She saw me enter, and her eyes narrowed. She'd been expecting me to hide. My presence here was unexpected. The meeting started with Catherine's presentation. She'd prepared a slideshow, projected on a screen at the front of the room. That was a masterpiece of manipulation and carefully edited lies. Slide 1, the medical facility crisis, protecting our community. Slide 2, photos of the hospital transport van in my driveway. Labeled, unauthorized ambulance service slide. 3 screenshots of my home office, lights on at night. Labeled 24-hour commercial operations. A photograph of a first aid kit not even from my house, labeled unlicensed medical supplies. Slide 5. Fake testimonials from concerned neighbors reporting suspicious medical activity. For weeks, Catherine told the assembled crowd, I have been trying to address a serious public safety issue that this community faces. Doctor, Crawford has been operating what amounts to a medical clinic from his residence, in direct violation of our HOA covenants, zoning laws, and public health regulations. She clicked to the next slide, a pie chart showing projected property value decline with scary red numbers. Independent real estate analysis suggests that having a medical facility in our neighborhood could decrease our property values by as much as 15-20%. That's tens of thousands of dollars from each of your home's value. Murmurs of concern rippled through the crowd. I have contacted every relevant agency: the health department, the medical board, the fire department, zoning enforcement. And while Dr. Crawford has used his position and influence to convince officials to overlook these violations, we as a community have the right to enforce our own standards. She pulled up the final slide community action plan tonight. I'm asking this community to support the HOA board in taking legal action to shut down this medical facility and protect our families. The assessed fines of $50,000 are not punishment. They're a necessary step to force compliance with community standards. The room erupted in discussion. Some people nodded in agreement, others looked uncertain. A few were clearly skeptical. Catherine called for comments, and several residents stood up to share their concerns about my activities. Most of them were based on Catherine's lies, but they sounded convincing to people who didn't know better. Then Tom Chen stood up. Catherine, I have a question. You keep saying Dr. Crawford is operating a medical facility, but I've been to his house. I've seen his home office. It's a guy sitting at a computer talking to other doctors on video calls. How is that different from me working from home as a software engineer? Catherine's smile was condescending. Tom, there's a difference between occasional work from home and running a medical practice. Doctor, Crawford has medical vehicles arriving at all hours. He had hospital transportation drop him off twice when his car was being repaired. Tom interrupted. That's not running an ambulance service. That's getting a ride home from work. Another neighbor, elderly Mrs. Patterson, stood up slowly. I'd like to say something. 3 years ago, I had a heart attack in my driveway. Dr. Crawford performed CPR and saved my life before the ambulance arrived. He's never charged me a penny. He's never asked for anything. He's just been a good neighbor and a good doctor. And now we're here trying to fine him. $50, 000, for saving lives from his computer. The mood in the room shifted slightly. Catherine's composure cracked for the first time. Mrs. Patterson, with all due respect, this isn't about Dr. Continue, Crawford's character. It's about rules and regulations that exist to protect all of us. That's when I stood up. Catherine, I'd like to address the community if that's permitted. She looked like she wanted to refuse, but too many eyes were on her. 5 minutes, I walked to the front of the room, and Marcus handed me a folder. My name is Dr. Ethan Crawford. I'm a board-certified trauma surgeon at Denver Memorial Hospital. I've lived in this community for 5 years without any complaints until Catherine became HOA president 8 weeks ago. I held up the first document. This is a letter from the Colorado Department of Public Health, dated yesterday, confirming that their investigation found zero evidence of any medical facility operations at my home. I held up the second document. This is from the Colorado Medical Board, confirming that I'm a licensed physician in good standing, with no violations and no patient care activities occurring at my residence. Third document. This is from the Denver Fire Marshal, confirming no hazardous materials violations. Fourth document. This is from the Noise Control Office, confirming sound levels at my property are well below legal limits. I looked directly at Catherine. Every agency you contacted has investigated and found your complaints to be completely without merit. So the question isn't whether I'm violating any laws. I'm not. The question is why you've spent 8 weeks filing false reports, harassing a medical professional, and trying to destroy my reputation. Catherine's face flushed red. Those agencies are obviously biased toward facts and evidence. I pulled out another document. This is Colorado Revised Statute 1236117, which explicitly protects licensed medical professionals from HOA interference with home-based professional activities. Catherine, every fine you've issued violates state law. Every threat you've made is legally void. The room went very quiet. Marcus stood up. I'm Marcus Webb, Dr. Crawford's attorney, and I'd like to share something the HOA board might not be aware of. He pulled out his own folder. According to Colorado Secretary of State records, the Greenbrier Estates HOA's nonprofit incorporation lapsed in 2022 and was never renewed. This HOA has no legal standing. Every fine issued in the past 2 years is fraudulent. You could hear a pin drop. Furthermore, Marcus continued, the financial records show $47, 0 inches unexplained expenditures from HOA accounts, primarily for legal consultations paid to a firm connected to President Thornhill's family. That's embezzlement. Catherine shot to her feet. This is slander. You can't make accusations. These are public records. Marcus said calmly, available to any homeowner who requests them, which several of you did last week after receiving Dr. Act Crawford's mass defamation email. Tom Chen stood up again. Catherine, is it true the HOA isn't properly incorporated? Other board members were looking at each other in confusion. One of them, a man named Richard Santos, stood up. Catherine, you told us you'd handled the incorporation renewal last year. Are you saying we don't have legal authority? Catherine's composure shattered completely. This is a coordinated attack, Doctor. Crawford is using his money and influence to destroy me because I dared to stand up to his illegal medical operation. Mrs. Patterson stood up again. Catherine, you've made a lot of accusations tonight. But Doctor, Crawford has actual documents from actual government agencies. What do you have besides accusations? I have evidence. Catherine pulled out her phone. I have photographs of medical equipment. You have photographs of first aid kits and medical supply catalogs. I said quietly, the state health department examined your evidence and determined you fabricated it. Dr. Sarah Martinez personally informed me that filing false reports with a state agency is a criminal offense. The room exploded in conversation. Board members were demanding answers from Catherine. Residents were arguing about who to believe. Catherine was trying to maintain control but losing ground with every second. That's when Marcus dropped the final bomb. As of 9 a.m. this morning, Dr. Crawford has filed formal complaints with the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, the Attorney General's Office, and the Denver Police Department. Catherine Thornhill is under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, filing false government reports, defamation, and criminal harassment of a licensed professional. Complete silence. Catherine looked like she'd been physically struck. Her face went from red to pale in seconds. Richard Santos stood up. I move for an immediate vote of no confidence in President Thornhill. Seconded, said another board member. Catherine tried to speak, but her voice cracked. You can't. This isn't. I was protecting our community. The vote was 127 inches favor of removal. 8 opposed. 3 abstentions. Catherine Thornhill's reign as HOA president lasted exactly 8 weeks and ended in complete humiliation. But the consequences were just beginning. The next morning, Investigators from the Colorado Attorney General's office arrived at Catherine's home. They spent 6 hours interviewing her, reviewing financial records, and building a criminal case. The charges were filed Wednesday: embezzlement of HOA funds, fraud, filing false government reports, criminal harassment of a licensed professional, and defamation. Total potential sentence: 3 to 7 years in prison. Catherine hired an expensive criminal defense attorney and tried to negotiate. The AG's office refused any plea deal that didn't include significant prison time and full restitution. The civil lawsuit Marcus filed on my behalf settled quickly. Catherine's homeowner's insurance paid $250. 0 inches damages exactly 5 times what she tried to fine me. But the sweetest justice came from an unexpected source. 6 weeks after Catherine's removal, the Colorado State Legislature passed new legislation officially designated as the Medical Professional Protection Enhancement Act, but informally called Crawford's Law by the representative who sponsored it. The law imposed mandatory criminal penalties for HOA interference with licensed medical professionals, created a fast-track legal process for doctors facing harassment, and required HOAs to undergo compliance training on professional protection laws. Catherine's case had exposed a pattern of abuse across Colorado. Dozens of doctors, therapists, and other licensed professionals being harassed by HOAs that didn't understand or didn't care about state protection laws. Today, I still practice trauma surgery at Denver Memorial. I still provide consultations from my home office. I still mentor residents via video calls, and occasionally, when I finish a late-night consultation that saves a life 3 states away. I think about Catherine Thornhill and her 8-week campaign to destroy my career. She pleaded guilty to reduced charges and served 22 months in a minimum security facility. When she was released, she'd moved to Phoenix. Her reputation destroyed. Her marriage ended. Her life in Colorado over. The Greenbrier HOA was properly reincorporated under new leadership that included Tom Chen as president and Mrs. Patterson as vice president. They sent me a formal letter of apology and invited me to serve on the board. I declined. I had enough on my plate saving lives, but I appreciated the gesture. 6 months after Catherine's conviction, I was finishing up paperwork after a long shift when my phone rang. Unknown number. Dr. Crawford. This is Sarah Martinez from the Department of Public Health. I wanted to let you know that your case inspired some significant policy changes. We've created a new rapid response protocol for investigating complaints against medical professionals. We're also training our investigators to recognize harassment patterns. What happened to you shouldn't happen to anyone. Thank you. Dr. Martinez. No. Thank you. You fought back when most people would have given up. You protected not just yourself, but every medical professional in Colorado who might have faced similar harassment. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a few minutes, processing everything that had happened. Catherine Thornhill had attacked me because she saw a doctor working from home and decided it violated her vision of a perfect neighborhood. She'd filed false complaints, fabricated evidence, embezzled funds, and tried to destroy my career. And she'd lost everything. Not because I was powerful or connected or wealthy, but because I documented everything, knew my rights, and refused to surrender to someone whose authority was built on lies. Sometimes, the quietest victories are the most complete. If you've ever had to stand up to someone who thought their title made them invincible, you know how this feels. Catherine Thornhill learned what every petty tyrant eventually learns. Real authority doesn't come from a position or a title. It comes from truth, evidence, and the courage to fight for what's right. I'm Dr. Ethan Crawford. I save lives for a living, and I'll always fight to protect that calling no matter who tries to stop me.